Hello and welcome to another breakout session. Today's breakout session number 16 is, we're going to call it Unlocking the Dorian Scale. Today we're going to follow up on the modes. In the last episode we talked about Mixolydian, and now we're going to talk about the Dorian mode. Or the Santana scale, it's pretty well known as. Before we get started, as usual, I'm going to say hi to all my friends in the Guitar League out there around the country that might be watching. And as usual, I would ask you, if you haven't already, please subscribe, hit the little bell. We'll notify you when there's a breakout session coming on or anything I put up there. And if you like it, I sure appreciate some little like buttons pushed. My job is to try to make the complicated simple enough so that I can even understand it. So that's what I'm trying to do here today. So we're not going to go too deep into the modes. We mentioned there's 7 modes of a major scale. And the Dorian scale is the 2nd mode in the major scale. So to make this as simple as humanly possible, we're talking about, let's say, we'll stick with the C scale because there's no sharps and flats and it's easy. So you remember the old C scale that we've worked on like a million times, just the basic simple C scale? We've gone over this a lot. Well, if you take that C scale and you start it, instead of from C, if you start it on a D, on D, that's D Dorian. It's the 2nd mode of the D Dorian is the 2nd mode of C. Okay? And if we wanted to get really complicated, if you took a C scale and started it on any note and finished it on that note, you'd be in a different mode. For instance, if you started on the E and ended on the E, you'd be in the Phrygian mode. If you started on F and finished in F, you'd be in the Lydian mode. And we already talked about the Mixolydian mode, which was the 5th mode of C. So if you started on a G, you'd be in the Mixolydian mode. If you start on an A, you're going to be on the Aeolian mode, which is actually the true minor scale. It's the relative minor scale in any key, the 6th mode. And the 7th mode is hard, that's the old diminished one. It's a little tough. It doesn't come in too handy, so we won't even, that's the Lucrian mode. And we won't spend too much time on that one. So, as I said, you start a C scale on any note and finish it on the same note. You're going to be in a different mode. So for this scenario, we are in D Dorian, okay? And so then you say, well, what do I care about that? Well, that's a really interesting mode. And, it's Santana uses it all the time. So if you think of that mode, you think of pretty much any song that he does, he's got some Dorian in there. He mixes it up between Dorian and pentatonic and some other stuff. Maybe even Mixolydian, depending on what he's doing there. But that gives you an idea of what it sounds like. It really sounds like a lot of Latin type music. And the beauty of this is you could vamp on like a 2-chord progression. If you think of the Dorian scale, a lot of times you think of Santana. That note right there is that is Dorian at its best. That's a 2 in the scale, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so like Dorian, a Dorian scale would be D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. No sharps and flats. And normally in the key of D, there'd be sharps and flats, right? Or flats. So the 2, you're going to add a 2. So you're going to add 2 notes to the D minor pentatonic. You're going to add the 2 and the 6th to the minor pentatonic. And that's when it really starts sounding like Dorian. So you could look at this from 3 different angles. One, you could play a C scale starting at D, if you were in D Dorian. You could play a D Dorian scale, or you could play the pentatonic, the D minor pentatonic, but add the 2 notes. To make it 7 notes and be a Dorian scale. This would obviously work the same way in any key. So, for instance, if you were in A minor or A Dorian, you'd be working from one whole step down from the G scale. You'd have the same notes in a G major scale as you would have in A minor or A Dorian scale. So in a G scale, if you started with the A in a G scale, that would be a Dorian sound, and you're using the G scale. And then if you started with A, that would be the A Dorian scale, right, starting with the A. And then if you did a minor pentatonic scale, and added the 2 notes that we said, the 2nd and the 6th of the scale, you'd have A Dorian. And obviously this works in any scale. So you just want to go back from whatever, if it's a Dorian like A or B, if you were in a B minor, if you were in a B Dorian scale, then it's going to be the A major scale that will work with it, and so on down the line. So as I was preparing for this breakout session, I realized that there are a ton of great videos out there on the modes, especially on the Dorian mode, because it was Santana's favorite. So I recommend, I'm hoping I just got you started with it a little bit, give you a basic understanding of it. And I'm hoping that you will then go on to the internet and YouTube, find some other information more in depth about the modes, especially the Dorian. There's a lot of great backing tracks out there to play along with. I noticed Joe Robinson just put one up on the Dorian mode. It's incredible, and he's got a backing track that goes with it too. But if you could just find a little 2-chord vamp in whatever key you want to do. If it's a D, like a D minor and a G7, or a D minor 7 and a G7, like a 2-5 kind of chord progression, and just go along and play the different scales, the different positions of the Dorian scale, and just explore it and see if you don't like it as much as I do. So I'm going to leave it at that today, and I'm going to see you in the next video. I'm just going to put on a little D minor 7 and G7 back and forth and play up and down on some of the scales on the way out. See you later.